First, you're gonna disconnect the negative battery terminal, disconnect your MAF sensor and your IAT sensor. Both of them have this tab. Just pull back and push up. There's a worm clamp right here. Use a 8mm socket, loosen it up. There's another one back here. Loosen that one up. Remove the air box. Look how easy that was, huh? And remove this air intake tube. Move this out of the way. Use a bungee cord to hold the upper radiator hose and the throttle cable. The upper fan shroud is held by 7 bolts. 4 connect to the lower fan shroud and 3 connect to the frame. Use a 10mm socket for all of them. For the 4 that connect to the fan shroud, use a 12-inch extension. Should get them with no problem. This is one of the parts people struggle with, removing the upper fan shroud. I like to remove it from the driver's side first, up. But first, you have to clear it from this frame. So now that we have it cleared on this frame, now I'm just gonna lift it up from the driver's side. Make sure this part clears the radiator. And now it should just be able to slide out. Look at that. Next, we remove the belt from the alternator. Here's the tensioner. Use 3/8-inch tools, a 6-inch extension to remove tension on that tensioner. I'm turning counterclockwise. And here's the reason we're changing the alternator. Hear that? This alternator's been on there for what, 10 years plus? So we're doing a little bit of preventive maintenance. We don't want to get stranded out there. Before moving the generator out of place, you're going to want to disconnect that coolant sensor. You might need to remove this bracket. 10mm socket for the bottom, 13mm socket for the top. I also disconnected the EGR for a clearer view. Move this hose forward. And if you don't disconnect it and you move the alternator forward, it's going to drag and break that connector. The alternator is held in place via 2 bolts. Use a 6-inch extension and a 13mm socket to remove. Make sure to use the wide part of the fan. See, here's a big gap between the blades. Notice how these have a small gap. And you can use this for the tensioner also. Bam. With the bolts removed, I have another bungee cord holding these heater hoses towards me. And then just come in with your pry bar under this gap and pull up from the left side of it. And when you got that loose, come from the right side around this area. Yeah, you see it moving? And after a few minutes of prying, we got the generator alternator loose. This van also has rear heat, so it has this metal coolant pipe and this hose right here that are gonna get in the way. You can easily remove them. There's a clamp right here and then just pop it off. There's another clamp right here, pop it off. And another one to the back of that and pop it off. Now I got my bungee cord holding this coolant hose up. We have access to the connector. It's the same type of connector that was on your MAF sensor. Just pull up on this tab and push back. Boom, see how easy that was? Then use a 12mm socket to remove that nut. And now, do we have enough space to remove the generator? We're using the widest part of the fan, the widest gap. Oh, it's gonna be a really tight fit. Oh, look at that, got it out. And we didn't disturb the cooling system. Before dropping in the new generator alternator, you bring these metal pieces forward. What I like to use is an 8-ounce stubby ball peen hammer. Basically just hit them until they move forward. And now we put the new piece in position. Be careful with that fan. And get that nut back on there with the other connection. And the new generator alternator just drops in. Align the bolts, snug them up. The bearing is extremely quiet. And you got it from here, right? We replaced this part without disturbing the cooling system or without opening up the doghouse. I did it this way to show you that it's possible to replace the alternator on the side of the road. It's a lot easier if you remove the coolant hoses, especially if you have rear heat, but it is possible to do it this way. I hope you learned something. Have a good day.